Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Brecht. I am with the Visit Flanders Convention Bureau. We are your hosting sponsor today for the Impact and Foresight workshop. Before I hand it over to the two experts, Jacob and Geneviève, I'm going to give you a quick introduction on Flanders. So here we have Flanders. It is the northern Dutch-speaking region in Belgium, here highlighted in yellow. The southern part of Belgium is French-speaking, but English is spoken widely all over. We have a good connection with the United States. We have daily direct flights from New York, Chicago, Washington, but also Montreal and Miami, with a variety of airlines. So quite easy to get to. Flanders, when we zoom in, we have a look on the main cities. We have Antwerp, Bruges, Ghent, Brussels, our capital. Very easily accessible with other capitals in Europe. Amsterdam, London, Paris are all less than 2 hours away by high-speed train. When traveling in Flanders, it's also very easy. Cities are not much further than 1 hour, 2 hours apart by rail. Now, going into the cities, here we have Brussels. Brussels is the capital of Flanders, capital of Belgium, but also the capital of Europe. It is home to more than 2,000 international associations and truly a power city, if you will, just like Washington, D.C. Think of international institutions such as NATO, but also a bunch of European institutions. So truly a city to make decisions. And why not also during your next conference? Next slide, we have Ghent. Speaking of power cities, Ghent had its heyday in the 14th century, but still today it is a very important city in Belgium. It is the largest university town in Belgium, but also quite an interesting conference town. Ghent is refurbishing currently the conference center. It hosts easily up to 1,000 people, so definitely one city to consider for your next conference. Next, we have Limburg, I think. Yes, Limburg is the green region in Flanders, east of Brussels. It is known for its industrial heritage, but also outdoor activities and just meetings out in the green. So if you like it a little quieter, definitely consider Limburg. But back to our historic and medieval towns. Of course, the star within our assortment is Bruges. Bruges is one of the best preserved medieval towns in the world. It is UNESCO World Heritage and truly a gem when it comes to hosting international conferences. They do host a number of international conferences. And why not yours next? And then, of course, we have Antwerp. Antwerp is Belgium's second largest city, just 30 minutes from Brussels airport. So truly a viable competitor for our capital city. Some would say maybe even a little more affordable, but truly a metropolis on a human scale. Here we see a big photo of, again, the convention, the Congress Center of Antwerp. It is also known for diamonds and fashion. And yes, Leuven is a smaller university town, but truly an important city. Just 15 minutes outside of Brussels. It is home to the world's most famous beer, or at least Belgium's most famous beer, Stella. So meeting with a beer in your hand, why not? It's all possible in Flanders. When we move on, so I want to talk to you a little bit about the heritage venues. Flanders heritage venues are special locations with special history that are close to culinary activities, close to city centers. They have the stamp of approval of the Flemish government, and they are truly venues to consider. Now, something I want to mention is satisfaction survey. Next slide. Saying goodbye to our cities is always the hardest part, and it is very true for people who come on a site inspection or a fam trip. You see it here, the numbers speak for themselves. People are very happy after they come to Flanders, and why not do yourself a favor and get a similar experience? Now, I'm going to keep it short, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the strategy of the Flanders Convention Bureau. Basically, it reads on the screen, we want to strengthen the positive power of tourism, the positive power of conference tourism, to make sure that not only your association gets the most out of their visit, but it also benefits our residents and entrepreneurs, and of course, the heritage of our cities. How do we do that? We do this by trying to focus on attracting conferences that link to our DNA, conferences that link to our key industries, or as you would call them here, our key domains. They are listed here. So if your association is linked to any of those domains, you will be very much at home in Flanders and ready to create an impact with your conference. Again, not only create an impact on your association, but also on the destination. The best way to explain this is with an example. Next slide. If we look at a cycling conference that we recently hosted in Flanders, we saw that as a result of the conference, the city was able to build additional infrastructure in the city, but there was, for instance, also international policy created to make regulations for safer cycling, not only in the city where it was hosted, but again, it was a blueprint for regulation on a global scale. So that's just one example. I will leave it to our expert, Geneviève, to dive into that completely. As for us, if you like to have a beer with me, or you have an urge to eat some Belgian chocolate, or you want to host an association conference in Flanders, here are my contact details. Feel free to reach out. I am here for you. My background is the Grand Place in Brussels, but don't be fooled, that's just a photo. I am effectively based in New York City, so very close to you, and happy to chat further. For now, I want to pass the baton to my friend Jacob, and I'll see you later in the breakout room. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brecht. And the pictures of Flanders certainly brought some really fun memories for me. And I'll be calling you soon to get that beer and chocolates. Hi, everyone. I'm Jacob Kanish. I'm the CEO and founder of Global Navigators. We support associations with long-term strategies and market research so that associations can enter new international markets with the peace of mind of knowing exactly what and how to accomplish that. I'm also the outgoing chair of the ASAE International Associations Advisory Council. And one more hat I'm wearing is I'm on the ASAE Foresight's committee. I'm excited to see many colleagues on this call. So I want to briefly talk to you about the ASAE Foundation. I know many of you understand the foundation very well and know everything that it does, but ultimately the foundation is here to support you and other association executives with research, scholarships, and practical tools to ensure that your associations run smoothly with the right leadership, having the right skill sets. So our associations are impacted by so many trends, immediate, short, and long-term trends. And our job at ASAE is to think about some of those bigger pieces, what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years that we should be prepared for. And we do this by the practice of foresight. We try to outline and understand what will our associations be impacted by in the next long-term planning. So some fun facts. This group is very disciplined. We like structure. We like to think about what comes in the future. We like to take a step back, think what has happened in the past, but ultimately analyze different trends and opportunities for associations and ultimately culminate in long-term futures for associations. We do think that it's critical for business leaders to take this information and apply it in their own strategic planning, because this is a very critical part of our businesses as associations thrive in the future. Just one quick point, foresight is not the same as trends. Trends impact us today. Foresight is something that we need to be aware of into the future, many years ahead. So our process is threefold. We begin by looking back by the process of framing, scanning, and forecasting, making sure that we understand exactly our audiences, their attitudes and their work environments, but also understanding the context and the history of why something has happened. And then we finally arrive at forecasting and trying to understand what kind of drivers and uncertainties will impact us in the near future. We then move into the visioning stage, where we try to outline which forecasts actually are realistic, which are pliable, what makes sense for our sector when we look at the preferred futures we want to work with. We hope this information is helpful as association executives plan and design other strategies. But ultimately, our hope is that association executives take the Foresight information and act upon it, adapt Foresight into their implementation plans as they develop their long-term strategies and so on. So through the process, we take into consideration the STEPB framework. So throughout the Foresight activities, we look at society, look at technology, look at economy, look at politics and business, and all these domains and how they interact and intersect with each other, creating new foresights for association executives to consider. And I'll talk in a minute more about the current domains. So I'm just excited to be part of the Foresight Works. I know many of you are off video, but if you can, raise your hand so that we can see if you've been involved in Foresight Works either this year or in the past. And we know there's many volunteers already who have been working in this field, supporting ASAE in this process. Thank you very much for doing that. So some fun facts about the ASAE Foresight Works. What I find really interesting is there are 50 drivers of change that over the past few years, my colleagues and I and others have created. We spent a lot of time, through a deliberate process, making sure that we understand which foresights are no longer relevant. We update them. We think of new ones that we can add to the number of those 50 to help association executives move forward. So in terms of how associations can learn from this, first, we hope that ASAE's Foresight Works will help inform your strategies so that you are aware about some of the long-term implications to the association sector. Describe those foresights to your stakeholders, like your boards, like your members, and so on. But finally, engage your staff and volunteers so that they also understand the importance of these foresights. And finally, take action so that you can lead your association into the future, knowing exactly what the future might look like. So as I mentioned, there are quite a few domains and even more drivers of change, but we look at anything from the health of the population to the changing volunteer structure to aging demographics across the world, globalization and how recent political and geopolitical shifts are impacting us, are going to impact in the long term. But the implications of AI on our work, all of these make up this body of knowledge that lives within ASAE's Foresight Works. So you're able to access Foresights on the ASAE website. When you do, you'll be able to take advantage of summaries of the different forecasts and key uncertainties that we believe will impact us in the long term, understand some data points, review opportunities and challenges, and perhaps how they will impact you from the timing perspective. But finally, some ideas for how you can implement these foresights into your next steps and how you and others will be affected by them. With that, I would like to invite my colleague Geneviève, who will walk us through impact.
Thank you so much to both of you. Very happy to be here. I'd like to thank Visit Flanders for inviting me, as well as the ASAE Foundation. Thanks for those great opening remarks, Jacob. It leads right into our topic of today, because foresight is one of the key strategies, not only to develop resilience, but also to be more impactful in the future. So I'll introduce myself. Geneviève Leclerc. I'm based in Montreal. I founded an organization called Meet for Impact. Prior to that, I had 23 years of experience as a professional conference organizer working for associations. And I've also been an association executive for 10 years. So I wear another hat currently as the managing director of the International Society of Limnology, which is a scientific society that our members work on freshwater. But I was previously the director of meetings and congresses for the International Transplantation Society. So I bring to this quite a lot of association experience, and our mission at Meet for Impact, 100% of the work we do is to help association meetings have tangible impact for communities, communities of practice, of course, in your field, but also the communities that are hosting you and collaborating with you. So we do this by training destination management organizations, associations, and other related organizations. We support these organizations to develop strategies. We've been working with Visit Flanders for 2 years now in developing association-centric strategies around hosting association meetings. We also do impact measurement with some of our partners, and we also do research and communication. So what I'm going to talk today about is really the basis of why we do this and how we do this. Before we commence talking about impact, the important thing should be to make sure that we are talking about the same thing. We often hear the word impact used in a number of ways, but the way we understand impact is that it reflects a profound change. So it reflects a positive outcome, a result on something that is either an issue, a gap, or a problem, and that affects society or the planet. So impacts are results. They generate value, most often shared value. It can be a new social asset. It can be a new knowledge, something that we own as society. The greatest the gap or the need, the greatest the impact. So impact represents a positive change from a present situation to a future situation by addressing some issues that we may have in the present situation, or filling an aspirational gap, mainly helping us get from where we are today to where we want to go in the future. And here comes Foresight at play here, helping us bridge that aspirational gap. And finally, when we talk about impact, we talk about intentionally producing results through conscious and deliberate effort. So while unintended impacts occur, what we want to see is purposeful impact. So it's really setting goals for ourselves of wanting to create change and putting conscious and deliberate efforts behind that. So if we want one statement on impact, the one we use is impact is the sum of changes generated by an organization through its actions on the community or the ecosystem, and which takes into account the needs of stakeholders and the system targeted. So this is basically how we construct a mission statement, and that you are doing this as an association is you are creating cumulative effects over time generated by your actions and your services and your programs aimed to your community, and which takes into account the needs expressed by that community. There's many ways associations deliver impact. These are some of the core ones. Fundamentally, associations and their activities help to grow social capital. And social capital is basically anything that makes society grow together, bond together, be stronger, creating stronger social networks and stronger affiliations and sense of belonging to these networks, which then enable us to develop, create professional relations, grow knowledge, and have support from our peers. The second thing that associations do is really the professional development and the sector recognition. And for non-professional association, it's really kind of developing knowledge around key topics and key issues. So you're supporting opportunities for your members, whether they're employment opportunities, research, or life opportunities, and you're helping develop your field and advocate on behalf of the people that make up that field. Thirdly, you develop and promote professional best practices in your field or in your sector. And ultimately, what that does is making a safer world and building stronger cities, stronger communities, stronger systems and infrastructure. So all of you have a little role to play, and your members have a little role to play in this big society and our system. And finally, not finally, but additionally, associations create expertise, they create knowledge. One of the biggest assets that we have as an association is the collective knowledge that we develop and that our members develop, the thought leadership and fueling discoveries and kind of sharing that knowledge for the benefit of humanity. So you're already delivering impact. So you're going to ask me, how can we do more? How can we do more of that impact, and how can we be more intentional? And that's the purpose of today's webinar. I'm saying, let's collectively name the impact that we are already delivering, and then let's look at how we can amplify that, replicate that, and scale it. You're already also delivering impact by contributing to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I'm not sure who of you knows the Sustainable Development Goals. Maybe you can give us a thumbs up. If you already know or are working on the Sustainable Goals, it'd be interesting. I'd be interested to see. But the UN SDGs are goals that society, so through the United Nations, nations have given themselves goals to reach by 2030. And basically what that is, it's 17 large topics that we want, where we want to achieve a certain threshold of equality among nations. So for example, if we look at goal number 4, it's really looking at how do we raise education everywhere. The goals were particularly developed to help underserved or underprivileged communities, developing countries, but also underprivileged communities in developed countries. But everyone can use the goals and can help, it can help them understand how they can contribute to global goals and a common vision. It really helps us understand how what we do as an association fits into the bigger picture. It's a fantastic way of communicating our mission and the impact that we have. And it's also a really positive and powerful tool to create partnerships, because once we start mapping what we're doing and what we're aiming for against these goals and their targets, then we can identify other organizations that, even though the topics may be slightly different, the aim, the purpose might be similar, and then we can bridge a divide and really start developing partnerships with these organizations. So we're going to give you a resource at the end, but if you just type in globalgoals.org in your computer, you will have access to a portal that shows you all of the goals. And when you click on the icons, you're going to get the targets, which are really kind of the sub goals linked to each of these. So we're going to talk about a few strategies today on how you can amplify your social impact. The first, always the first protocol when we start talking about impact is to really ask you what your purpose is. And sometimes we've got associations who tell us that their mission is education and research. That's how you do what you do. But your purpose is really having a clear understanding and formulation on how what your members do and what you do to support them changes the world, literally, how it creates positive value for society and planet, and how your activities deliver on this. And sometimes I'm asked to work on an impact strategy with an organization whose purpose is not very clear. And the first thing we do is we go back and we work on their purpose statement, understanding that you do education, you do research, but why? It's the why behind what you do, and it's how you're contributing to changing the world through what you do. The second way you can amplify your impact is, as my colleague Jacob discussed earlier, plug into the idea of foresight and innovation, and they really go hand in hand. The foresight allows you to plan for the future, not only by diminishing your exposure and your liability to all of the risk factors we've got out there, and we saw that with COVID, but there's many more, you know, inflation, there's many more crises. Some of us who are in other parts of the world may face other risks, such as war, displacement. We're definitely all feeling the effects of climate change. But while we're diminishing these risks to our organizations and to our members in our communities, we need to also be thinking strategically about the drivers of change that are going to come at us from the future and plan for that. And that's what the whole ForesightWorks research does, is it helps us be much more resilient, but also be ready to embrace that in the future and be ready to elevate our impact by literally being ready. Another way you can amplify your social impact is through your event strategies. A lot of associations, some of their largest activities are their annual events or events they partner in. And the collaboration of your destination stakeholders and all of your ecosystem, we have found through our research, is one of the top 3 factors that enable an event or an activity to have maximum impact. So we're going to talk about a couple of examples in a minute, but developing a strategy by which your event is leaving a legacy behind. So it's not just doing a great job at educating your members and your participants and delivering a fantastic experience. But if you're thinking about how your event can create lasting change in the community of practice and in the hosting community, and you're purposefully planning for this around your event, then you're planning for legacy and you're amplifying the impact of your event. So when you leave town, what you're leaving behind is going to have a lasting impression. And then finally, another way you can plan for impact is by increasing your global presence. A lot of us did this during COVID, and we realized that by having a more global presence, we were more inclusive, but we also connected with a lot of underserved sectors or communities that may not have been in our radar before. So going global, and this is going to be a topic for discussion a little later, is going to help us be more global. I am seeing that there are some questions that are coming, and Andrea and her team are going to be monitoring that, and then we can take some questions after. An example of unclear purpose, and I think some of you may recognize organizations that you might have worked for in the past. You know, the statement of, for example, we're leaders in developing excellence and promoting best practice in blah, 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 our field. We promote our members' research and we publish the results in a world-class journal. It tells us what you do. It's almost your action plan. But it's not a purpose. It doesn't tell us how you're creating change. One of the organizations that we work with that has a very clear example of purpose is IEEE. IEEE's core purpose is to foster technological innovation and excellence for the benefit of humanity. That is super clear. It tells us how they want to be agents of change. And then it's really easy to take that and convert that into a powerful value proposition for their meeting. So we turn that into an impact strategy. We've already got the blueprint. So by having and developing an impact strategy, their global value proposition and their power to transform is strengthening and really optimized through their meetings. So that's an example of how you may think of your mission and try to start thinking about, is my purpose clear in our mission? And if not, if I can't fix the mission statement, how do I articulate something else that helps me understand the purpose, that helps me understand as an executive or an event manager, how I can then transfer that into my meeting strategies. So the reason we're talking about meetings is we're meetings people, but it's also because events and meetings are such a great way to create change, because they connect us to people, they connect us to individuals, and change always starts at the individual level. And we've all appreciated our virtual meetings, but when we get face to face, that's when we realize the power that we have to be transformed and transform and act as a catalyzer. So events are powerful drivers of change. We've also seen from the ICA Association survey that was published in March, and I'm sure our colleague Ksenia that's here could put the link in the chat while I'm talking to that survey. But we saw that the association that responded to the survey were very hungry for impact strategies. They were asking for different things that create impact. They were asking destinations to help support their sustainability strategy. They're now asking, half of them are asking for destinations to have an inclusion, diversity, and equity policy in place. They're asking their destinations to have a legacy program and to support them and train them in that. And finally, 60% of respondents actually were saying that the ability for their destinations to help them develop strategic alliances and partnerships in destination was key in their decision making. So impact is actually not a trend, but it's actually making its way in a very real way into decision making processes for associations. When we look at the potentiality that you have to create impact in a destination, the biggest impact that you can have is by aligning your mission, your field or professional development goals with a priority or an agenda locally. So here, we're not talking about the community volunteering initiatives that you may have undertaken, which are great to provide kind of short-term social impact into the destinations. But we're talking about the next step, which is using your expertise and knowledge and your members' expertise and knowledge in your field to affect that field or that sector in your hosting destinations. So that means very strategically looking at your RFP process, going much, much beyond the logistical factors or the hospitality factors, at how local community issues and gaps or needs in your sector or around your sector or your topic, and priorities for development in that field or that sector that are being pushed by the municipal or the regional government aligns with your mission, and seeing how you can use that and leverage your meeting and your presence in that community to create event impact. So that means collaborating with your destination partners to create impact through really powerful collaboration strategies. And we do this by starting to map that alignment. That slide that I showed you previously, it's basically a triangle. It's got 3 points. We literally start by aligning how your mission, how the local political agendas and priorities, and how the gaps align. And once you do that, you can really very quickly identify where you might have impact. And then you're working with a wide ecosystem to implement, track, and share deliberate and meaningful impact projects. So that means going way beyond your traditional value chain of suppliers and hotels, and some of you may engage local government, but it also means engaging academia and businesses and civil societies and the innovation ecosystem to think together about how your mission could be actualized locally. And finally, it's really bringing you to a point where you're leveraging events to help our sustainability goal, to support actively social and economic development in the region, to contribute to the expertise and the growth of your sector in that region, and finally, delivering positive impact for many more stakeholders than just your attendee base. So that collaborative ecosystem means align with the destination. It means having intentionality behind what you do. And when you start engaging destinations, we're teaching destinations to stop asking, how much space do you need? But to start asking, what is your strategic objective with that meeting? What are you trying to accomplish, and how can we help you? So in return, we need the associations to want to have those discussions, to engage destinations. And maybe you'll get to a point where you say, I know you have a convention center. I know you've got hotels. You're a big city. I get that. But how are you going to help me meet my strategic objectives? And really, how are you going to help me create a collaborative ecosystem in your destination? How are you going to connect me to this organization and this organization? So it's really, really pushing these strategies. And the outcomes of that, there's greater awareness about what you do and the value of it. There's greater collaborations with more stakeholders. We're seeing that actually go into maybe finding new funders around this proposition. It really helping you showcase your organization, your sector, and your expertise. And it's providing higher value for everyone that's involved in your meeting and that may be involved in the topic, even if they're not directly involved in the meeting. So we've done this with Flanders. As I said, we've been working with them for 2 years. They have developed a conference with impact proposal, which is very strong. Brett showed you how this stemmed from a few vision a few years ago. Visit Flanders really aligned their mission to their strategic government priorities, wanting to strengthen the positive power of conferences so that Flanders can flourish as an innovative, inspiring, and qualitative destination for the benefits of its residents, entrepreneurs, and visitors. So you kind of see here the structure of the impact statement I showed you in the beginning. We want to do this in the long term. We want to do it for these stakeholders, and this is what they need, and this is what we want to achieve. So we are owning this vision of being agents of change. And the project that we've undertaken with them is really developing and trying a tested methodology to work with associations such as you, who are taking their meetings elsewhere on the global scale, to generate positive impact projects around the event, and then to engage a wide ecosystem around that project to actually deliver it and measure it. They're also managing a community of legacy makers in the destinations that are experts on several topics, and civil society stakeholders who can help connect you with local ecosystems. We're doing 5 pilot projects with them. So following association meetings, helping them on this trajectory, creating tools and creating knowledge. And this is looking at all 8 aspects of potential impact that we could be creating. So we've talked about sector impacts, we've talked about a lot intellectual, but there are many more that we could be looking at depending on your topics of association. And finally, I'm presently in Flanders. Actually, I'm sitting in a meeting room in a conventions in a university campus in Bruges, which is a beautiful city. And we've met today with a conference organizing committee for the European Academy of Childhood Disabilities. They've got their meeting here in Flanders in May. And they're a fantastic group. They are so intent on using the mission of the association to create change through their meetings. And the work that the Visit Flanders team, along with ourselves, have been doing has enabled the organizing committee, who are also very close to the board of the association, to identify 3 tracks by which they want to create positive impact in the community here in Flanders through the meeting. And for each of these tracks, there's a big goal. There's a big vision of change that is helping set the strategy. And then we've got kind of smaller SMART goals for outcomes. So one on accessibility, one on research, so developing knowledge, and one on supporting the development of technology to make people's lives, people with disabilities lives better. So that's just one example of the way we're doing this and the way associations are working in collaboration with destination partners.